Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Not all is well in Holyrood. It is, of course, a corrupt place filled with crooks and the insane, the corrupt, the mad, the ignorant, the stupid. It is a real zoo, really. Go along, roll up, see the funny little creatures, poke them with a stick and make them jump. Or at least that's how the whips see it. But not only the whips. Stephen Kerr, Tory MSP, has said that Holyrood is little more than a student debating chamber. It's not actually getting on and doing proper politics. It's wasteful, it's time consuming, and it's filled up with people who just want to spend all day talking about the most trite rubbish rather than doing their jobs. And I rather think that Stephen Kerr has got this perfectly correct. They do seem to spend a lot of time wasting time talking about things that really don't matter. Meanwhile, the whole of Scottish society is falling apart because not one of the ministers is bothering to do their job. No one is. They're all too scared to do their job because they don't want to make a pig's ear of it, and thus everything falls apart. But at least if they're not to blame, they think that their career will continue. Oh dearie me. Next election will change all that. Let's have a look to see what Stephen Kerr is saying, and if you agree with him. I think I do. Here goes. So MSP calls for major Scottish Parliament reforms as he hits out at hours of meaningless debates and the Michael Matheson scandal. The very scandal, I think, now is that Michael Matheson is still a minister and still actually a politician. He's no good at his job, and that's before you get into all the scandals surrounding him, of which there are many. But anyway, Tory MSP Stephen Kerr was scathing in his criticism of Holyrood, claiming that many politicians believe they were entitled and untouchable, and that nationalism can only be defeated if the Parliament is reformed. I'm going to suggest dissolved. They are certainly elitist. They are entitled. They do feel that they're above the law and above the sort of norms of society. They should be able to do things and say things and get away with all sorts of shadiness. They're never being held accountable, which is a shame. Every one of them needs to be held accountable. I don't think there's too many there that haven't broke the law or the rules in one way or another since the Parliament started back in 1999. That long ago, in the last millennium, you know. Anyway, leading MSP has launched a scathing attack on the Scottish Parliament as he called for urgent and major reforms. Tory Stephen Kerr hit out at the SNP rivals, who he accused of presiding over hours of meaningless debates on student debating style motions, all highly scripted and controlled. And he highlighted the scandal surrounding Michael Matheson as evidence of this, with the Health Secretary currently being allowed to claw back £11,000 in expenses for a masturbation bill in Morocco. It's currently under investigation by Holyrood officials, although don't hold your breath on whether you'll find he's guilty or not. And this was after he admitted his kids had racked up the charge by watching Scottish football using his data. He shouldn't have taken this machine abroad, especially not to a country deemed to be problematic by the Foreign Office. You don't know what's on there. All sorts of data could have been there. It was a security risk. He is a security risk. He needs to go. Anyway, his claim was originally accepted by the Parliament before a huge backlash in the media led him to being forced to pay it back. Mr. Kerr claimed that this incident was damaging to public trust in politicians. That's a joke. It's been many a long year since the public had any trust of politicians. There's very few that you believe. We treat them all with the contempt they deserve. Some more than others, it must be said. Anyway, writing for the Daily Telegraph, he pointed out the fact that Mr. Matheson even tried to submit that expense, and the fact that it got accepted showed us just how entitled and untouchable many establishment politicians in Scotland believe they are. He said if more people saw what is happening in our Parliament, they would be aghast. And this is why I report it. I want people to know. Everyone needs to know what's going on in public life. any kind of shadiness, any kind of cover-up, any kind of hiding of the truth from the people means that something terrible is always going on. Always throw sunlight on things, because if they daren't do it in the cold light of day, then you know they're up to no good. They're all crooks anyway. Hours of meaningless debates, he said, on student debating style motions, all highly scripted and controlled, and a group of MSPs totally out of touch with the real priorities of Scottish people. And we need more MSPs to pay heed to the principle over party. He said the dissenting opinion, the maverick point or view, or the insightful analysis is sacrificed on the altar of consensus. Oh yes, don't say anything that the leader doesn't like. Don't say anything that goes against the current agenda or the current zeitgeist, because you'll be castigated, cancelled. You'll be made to be someone terrible. And yet it is the people who go against consensus that often make the biggest changes in society. He said the fact that in many positions of influence of Parliament seem to be so proud of this fact that it is wrong. It attracts people more interested in the cheap soundbite for social media than for public service failure. And the amount of time given over to debating matters outside the remit of the Scottish Parliament is significant and utterly pointless for the governance of Scotland. I.e., every time they bring it up and mention independence, they have no mandate, they have no authority. They've been to the High Court. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do it. And yet they still insist on bringing up these things and going, oh, well, let's have a debate on independence. Why? You can't deliver it. And even if you could, you couldn't, because the majority of people in Scotland don't want it. Anyway, he wrote, at the hearing of the Economy and Fair Work Committee back in December, where evidence was heard from Petro-Ineos, which had just announced the end of the fuel refining at Grangemouth, some members of the committee read out questions that had been prepared for them and then went back to checking their emails. I was a member of the Business Set Committee of the House of Commons during the Carillion scandal. Oh, I remember that. It was about 5-6 years ago now, wasn't it? In which, over many hours, the executives were hauled over the coals by interested and prepared MPs. The contrast is deeply, deeply worrying. He said, I would urge the public to watch this and to decide if their elected representatives are doing a good job. There needs to be a minimum standard and a minimum delivery. And I think if you fail to meet the standards or the delivery, then you should be disbarred from ever standing again. There'll be some that will take great offence at that because they like doing nothing. Lazy sods, aren't they? Anyway, he claimed that some believe that the SNP want the Scottish Parliament to fail so it can continue to push for independence. And he called on unionists to get serious about reform of Holyrood, and that the only way they can defeat nationalism is to reform the Parliament to ensure it can get to grips with the real problems of Scotland. One of the biggest and most nastiest and most troublesome problems of Scotland is the SNP. If you truly want to get rid of that problem, there is but one simple solution. Vote them out. An election coming. Vote them out. Destroy the base. Bankrupt them. Make them go away forever. I shall stop there. I shall come up. We'll round off and we'll finish this video. We're moving on probably to the last one of the day coming soon. But it's a good day. And and we'll come up now. So what do we think? Stephen Kerr right? Is it just a student debating chamber, or does any real work occur there? There's not much evidence of it. Most of it seems to be sort of legislation by proxy. There's not anything that's really done. And every time you look at them, they're all sitting around. That's when they can be bothered to turn up. Every time you look at it, there's lots and lots of empty spaces. Everyone's looking a bit bored, all wishing they could be somewhere else and thinking, oh, is the bar open yet? What do you do? Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you think. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.